All right. Hello, everyone. Getting ready to go live. We officially go live at 7. But while we're here, I'm just going to get everything prepped and started. So for those who are just hopping on, make sure you have your paper, your blank piece of paper, and your crystals. Welcome, welcome, welcome. Just waiting for people to drop in as we get ready to jump into the heart space tonight. And I decided to go live a few minutes earlier to give everyone an opportunity and a chance to really grab their materials and even take time to smudge or cleanse and purify your crystals with smoke. I'm using copal, and because where I am, that's where it is most abundant. You can use sage, you can use rosemary, you can use lavender. But how's everyone doing? How have your grids been progressing? What experiences have you been having? If you've been getting a lot of resistance or feedback or anything like that, that's perfectly normal. In fact, that's a good sign that you're doing it right. Even though there's really no wrong way that you can do it, but you're totally making progress if you're hitting some resistance. Because whenever you start doing something good for yourself, the universe will always come and send you a little test to see if this is what you really want, to see if you're really willing to work through and put in the time and the struggle to achieve what it is you want. So let's see, we have a couple more minutes. For those of you active in the chat, let me know where you're coming in from. And just so everybody knows, I'm not going to be offering readings live until further notice. But if you feel compelled and you feel like you received a lot, I just dropped my links there. And if you want to ignite some prosperity, abundance, and any kind of flowing reciprocity, you can leave a donation of any amount to those links in the pinned comments. But otherwise, let me know that you're here. Say hello in the chat and grab your materials, your blank pieces of paper to draw your, blank piece of paper to draw your intentions and your grids and mandalas. Your grid this is the grid that I use, my trusty copper grid. Awesome, welcome. So you have come in at the right time. So this is basically a time where I'm just showing people different ways that they can really use their crystals. And I drew my mandala ahead of time. So for those of you just joining in, I just drew the heart mandala. This is just one that I pulled up. Hello, welcome Georgia. This is one I just pulled up from the internet, and I just kind of sketched it out by hand. And it's, representation of my heart and what's going on, and it has all the different elements on it. So we got our paper, we got our crystals. Normally I work with my generator crystal, but this time I feel very called to work with my orgonite. So as you can see here, this is orgonite. And orgonite is very amazing and this powerful technology. It's basically a combination of metals, coils, and crystals fused into resin using the free earth technology based on the principles that Tesla and Wilhelm and all of those other guys were talking about. We're not going to get into that. I'm actually going to do a whole video on orgonite because it needs to be talked about. But so I'm working with all these elements. And as you can see here, this orgonite has copper, which is energy of the heart. This also has gold shavings, and it has shungite shavings, and it has malachite. and lemon quartz on top. And so this is a very potent heart chakra energy for me. So this is going to be the central focus of my grid. I'm also going to bring back the cacao beans, okay? For those of you who do not know what cacao beans are what chocolate is before it's processed into a delicious chocolate bar. So chocolate comes from this. It comes from a giant pod that grows on a tree in the rainforest. And inside that pod are these beans, cacao beans. And, you know, they take the beans and they ferment them, they process them, and then they remove the cocoa mass and then the cocoa butter. This is where cocoa butter also comes from as well. And then they put it all together and they make a chocolate bar. It's pure magic, it's pure alchemy. But this is cacao beans that I'm working with. And that is also energy of the heart. I worked with my ocean jasper from last time. It's in the shape of a heart, so I thought it was totally apropos to throw into my grid. And let's see, I went into the garden and I picked some fresh rosemary and some fresh lavender and sage. Some lavender and then some sage. And I'm using this plant energy because, you know, plant energy has that energy of, like, especially flowers, things blossoming. So I want to bring that blossoming energy into the heart grid, and the plant energy has the growing energy. So I want to continue to expand the heart. So let's see, before we delve into the heart, let's talk a little. So for those who are just joining in, the whole purpose of these crystal grids is actually for those who are just new to crystals, or you have a ton of crystals, or you don't have a lot of crystals, but you still want to receive the benefit of the crystals, okay? And so the simple energy grids is a way to use what you already have when you don't have a lot, or you're just trying to get started somewhere. And so because we're working with the chakras and we're working with intentions, it's not only just a crystal grid, but it's an energy grid. So we're going to be incorporating the elements of the crystals and the elements of the plants and the elements, period. Okay? So I would like for everyone to just take a moment and pause, ground down, feel your feet on the earth. Let's take 3 cleansing breaths. Breathing in through your nose, exhaling out through the mouth. Again, breathing in, exhale, breathing out. Last time, breathing in, exhale, let it all go. Let your day go. Take a moment to relax and to connect with your body. We're going to call in our guides, call in our guardian angels, our ancestors of love and light that support us on our paths of spiritual growth and evolution, and any other spiritual beings or light denizens that you feel drawn to. You can call into this space as we ask for a circle of protection around ourselves and around this grid work that we're doing tonight, so that our intentions can come in nice and clear and pure and beautiful. I want you to take your hands and place them on your heart, breathing into your heart space, asking your heart what it needs, how does it feel, what can you do for it? Asking what affirmations you'd like for your grid to embody that relates to the heart. As you think about that, I'm going to talk a little bit about the heart chakra. So, as you can see here, you have the 2 interlocking circles, right? We've talked about how we've talked about the different shapes. So this is the root, okay? It's got the square. Oh, let's see. Here's the sacral. It's got the circle, right? Here's the solar plexus. It's got the triangle. And now we have the two intersecting triangles. And if you've been following with the previous videos, basically I've been talking about the different shapes that we're going to be working with as we build this grid. And also as we work through the chakras, you notice how the shapes become, they start to build more and more with each other. And so we have the two interlocking triangles, which is the merging of the two worlds, your upper world and your lower worlds, your higher chakras and your lower chakras, and so many metaphors. But basically, this is like a convergence of two worlds coming together. And so when you work on the heart, which in my opinion, you can never work too much on the heart, it's a beautiful thing because this is where thoughts and ideas come together into physical reality. Okay, and so this is another thing to consider when you bring this into your heart grid. Okay, so Anahata is the Sanskrit name, and forgive me if I'm not pronouncing it right. It literally means unstruck or unwounded or unhurt or unbroken. There's so many different meanings. It has the element of air, okay? So we started with earth, then we moved through water, then we moved into fire, now we're moving into air, okay? And so we continue to build. Let's see. It's ruled by Venus, the planet Venus. Now, Venus is interesting because Venus is always associated with love, but Venus really rules relationships. And so I want you to really focus on your relationships, your relationship to self, your relationship to love, your relationship to your environment, and your relationship to others. So these are things to consider, but it is the energy of Venus, and Venus energies tend to be green and pink, okay? And so other things to consider within the heart space, notes of compassion, unconditional love, joy, happiness. And it's literally what you need before you really start to bring things into true manifestation. And if you haven't hit the like button, I would really appreciate it. Show some love. And let me know how you're doing in the chat room, where you're coming from. But if your heart chakra is not flowing the way it should be, a lot of times you feel a lot of resentment, a lot of anger, a lot of grief, a lot of depression. Sometimes the circulation in your body physically and energetically is just not flowing. That's when it's time to look at the heart, okay? I, myself, as a space holder, healer, medicine woman, I like to focus a lot on the heart, which is why I work with the medicine of cacao, because that is the medicine of the heart. That's a whole nother discussion. But once again, you want to always work on the heart because the heart is where things come together before they truly start to manifest. If you think about a baby of love, like just any kind of baby, whether it's a physical baby or a metaphorical baby, it had to come together with some sort of love before it could manifest into this reality. And so that is the teaching of the heart for right now. Let's get back into the grid. So having your grid, it doesn't even have to be this fancy. It can be a piece of wood, it can be a book, but I like to work with this grid. It's made out of copper. Copper is an excellent conductor of energy. I'm going to place my mandala on the grid. Also, I almost forgot to mention herbs that you can work with to support the heart. Things like rose, tulsi, like holy basil, motherwort, eating leafy greens, chocolate. And if you want to know more about the heart, you can always send me a message. Heart is really my specialty. I have tinctures, I have chocolate, all kinds of stuff to support you on your heart endeavor. And some affirmations for the heart chakra. I am loved unconditionally. I love myself unconditionally. I love others unconditionally. I trust in the love and support of the universe. And I am balanced in my relationships. So, and I am compassionate. I am full of joy. So any kind of I am statement that resembles any of the ideas that you would like to bring into your grid, write them down, because every single day you're going to put this grid in a place where you can see it. And all you have to do is just say one of the affirmations and just breathe into it and just go about your day. That's all you have to do. So every day keep revisiting your grid and say one of your affirmations. And that is the purpose of these affirmations. If you only have one affirmation, but tomorrow you have 3 more, that's perfectly great. Why don't you go ahead and add those tomorrow? So just get started with at least 1 or 2, and then make it a daily meditation for this week, and so on and so forth, until we move into the next chakra. That way you can consciously keep building with the energy, and that is the whole purpose of these energy grids. Okay, so now I'm going to take my organite, which has malachite and lemon quartz and copper and coils. So there's going to be a lot of conduction in this grid. It's going to be really powerful. And I'm going to place it in the center of my mandala. Oh, whoops, let me back up a second. So if you want to add an extra boost to your grid, every week we've been working with shapes, okay? So we worked with the square, worked with the spiral, and this week I'm working with the interlocking triangles, and I added the seed of life with a little bit of flowery blossoming energy underneath. I said before previously to keep it simple, but as you continue to work with these energies and you get a basic understanding of how they come together, then naturally it'll be easier to add more elements into the shapes that you're invoking in your grid. So you can place this in your grid either underneath the entire grid, or you can place it underneath the mandala, okay? It's totally up to you. And since I'm also building with all the chakras, I'm going to take all the other chakras and I'm going to place it underneath my heart chakra mandala, because this is a building process. Because you're not, when you work on one energy center, even though the focus primarily on one, you're still working on all of it. That way you stay nice and balanced. Okay. So now I have them stacked. All right. Now I'm going to bring in, this is our primary. I'm going to bring in one of our secondary supporting energies. This is kunzite. Oh, let's see. Kunzite. This is beautiful, juicy, pink crystal that the light is shining on, and it's a little hard to see at the moment, but it's light pink and it's beautiful. Feel free to Google it. And in fact, I even did a video on kunzite and malachite, and you can learn more about these crystals if you just go on my YouTube channel and look it up. But kunzite is a juicy crystal of the heart. It heals broken hearts. It's for those who, to sum it up, it's when you're feeling tender. And when you're feeling really tender, work with kunzite. It's a very tender, tender energy. And so, because I feel that we should always be gentle with our heart space, I'm going to place kunzite into my grid. The other secondary energy I'm going to place is ocean jasper, taking advantage of this heart-shaped ocean jasper, using the heart. Because, you know, when we work with the heart, we're working with relationships. And relationships are everything, because everything is relative. Life is relative. So this is how you know relationships are important. And I want to bring balance into these relationships. Okay. And then I'm going to use my supporting quartz crystal points. Let me grab these here. Okay. And so this time, I'm actually going to have my quartz crystal points pointing inwards towards the center, okay? Because, so this is going to be pointing inwards towards my primary crystals and secondary crystals, because I really want this energy reinforced, Okay? And then I'm going to take the energy of the plants that I picked and place them also on the grid. Doesn't have to be super pretty, but it has to be special because it's your grid. So I'm going to put some sage, put some rosemary, put some lavender, okay, a little bit more sage. I'm sorry, rosemary. Rosemary is good for the lungs and clearing grief. And so if you have any grief on your heart, rosemary is excellent. Lavender is also excellent for moving any stagnant energies as well. And I've got my cacao beans that I'm also going to place into this grid. So this grid for this week is just kind of loaded, and that's just what's going to happen. And with the cacao beans, I am really drawing out the interlocking triangles. So that's where I'm going to really invoke the shape of this grid with the interlocking triangles. I would tilt this for you, tilt this forward for you so you can see, but it's going to fall off. So that's the best I can do. Well, let's see. There we go. All right. So shifting back. Cool. And please hit that like button and subscribe and share. Please and thank you. Okay, so now we have our crystals in our grid. Okay. Last week I used fire and I kept a candle burning for the solar plexus. The week before that I used the element of water and I put water literally on this grid. And so this week the element is air. And so while I have this grid up, I'm going to have incense burning because incense is a great element of, actually a combination of a lot of the elements. You got earth and fire and air. So I'm going to have this with my grid, and you can actually smudge your, clear your grid, cleanse your grid, purify it once again. And then I have my activator crystal, because when you set up your grid is not complete until you actually activate it, okay? I mentioned this in previous videos. If you don't know where to put the crystals, ask the crystals where they want to be placed. This is a process where you're consciously connecting with the divas or the consciousness of these elements, of these crystals, and they will communicate. They'll tell you, oh, put me here, put me here. And so now I'm going to communicate with this crystal, ask to be connected with the diva of this crystal so that I can activate this grid with my intentions and to continue building the intentions that I have been working on since I started these energy grids. And so the shape I'm drawing onto this grid is actually the shape that I'm working with, the sacred geometry that I'm working with, which are the interlocking triangles, the Metatron's cube, or the Star of David. And after I put this down, I'll review some of the other shapes for those who are just joining us. But my grid is fully activated. You can place your hand above it, and you can literally feel an energy coming from this grid. And whether you can feel it or not, just trust it. Trust me, like, intention is everything. So placing that there. And for those who need a little more assistance with the shapes, you know, triangles are for manifestation. It's a very masculine energy. Circles are very feminine. It's for relationships, fertility, and coming together. Squares are for grounding and stabilization and foundation and building. Then we have the interlocking triangles, which are for like all purpose. It's like the merging, the fusion. It's clearing and purification. It's great for chakra healing. So if you don't know which shape to go with, you should just use the interlocking triangles, and it will cover you on all bases. Then, of course, we have the seed of life, which is the very center of the flower of life. If you go back and rewind this to the beginning, I'll show you my grid that I'm building my grid on. That is the seed of life. The flower of life. Okay, and the flower of life contains all of these sacred shapes, and the very center of the flower of life is the seed of life, and the seed of life represents new beginnings, new chapters, and growing. And then, of course, the heart for relationships and for love. So if you really just want to focus on healing the heart and bringing in more love into your heart space, then the heart is a beautiful shape to work with. And then, of course, there's also the spiral, one of my favorites, and that's for bringing in or sending out energy. Okay, and let me see what's checking in the chat. What am I using as the activator crystal? So this is my shungite. I love it because it has a point. Okay, you can use quartz, you can use your hand. Technically, this is just a tool, okay? And this tool only works as well as I do. So think of it like this, like the crystal, I'm sorry. If you are putting nails into a plank of wood, you can technically put those nails into a plank of wood using your hand, or you can use a hammer, and then it's a little more effective, a little more efficient. And so this tool is a little more effective because it has this point which allows me to focus the energy, focus my intention through it. And I just love shungite because it's protection and grounding. And I also did a video on this. Let's see what else. But ultimately, if you don't have an activator crystal, use your hand. And you can use your hand because technically we're also crystals. Don't you ever forget that. We're crystals. And so if you're in a space where you feel like other energies can get into your grid, take time every day to reactivate and to cleanse and purify your grid with your hands, with your activator crystals. And if you want to protect it, you can actually deactivate it or put a shield around it. And then when you're ready to go back to it, you can reactivate it. On some level across the multiverse, your grid is still flowing. It's still growing. It's still glowing. Just wanted to share that little tidbit with you. But I think that completes the teaching for so much. Excuse my French. That completes the teaching for tonight. Does anyone have any questions? Any shares? Any ideas? I'd love to hear from you. And if you feel called, once again, I have my links pinned in the chat. Let me know where you're from. Thank you, everyone, for dropping in. Thank you for everyone that drops in later on. Everything is much appreciated. This is something that I've been very called to share with everyone. Next week, we're going to be working on the throat. But really, this week, I want you to focus on the heart, especially those in the United States, because I know some of you are struggling with this whole not being able to gather with family. And so that's going to affect the heart space. Rose quartz would work excellent for the grid. Rose quartz is a beautiful stone for the heart. It's a beautiful stone of compassion and higher love, self-love. And so, yeah, so with the heart, this is a great week, with it being a holiday week in the United States, to work on the heart space and connection and relationships. Depending on what you believe, we're not even going to get into that. Let's just hold space for everyone and keep our heart spaces big, bright, shining, and open. Okay, let's see. Bobby Brown, I have a question. How do you open the heart chakra? Well, great way to open the heart chakra is to build a grid with the intention to open your heart space. Technically, your heart space is never actually closed, but sometimes the energy flow can be a little constricted. And so we want to open it up. And we want to keep the heart chakra open, because when we have that space open, then we are unstoppable. We're fearless. The heart chakra literally, or anahata, literally means unstruck and unwounded. So when our heart is open and strong, like nothing can hurt us, because we are connected to the energy of the universe. And as long as we remember that, we are a force to be reckoned with. Let's see, you mentioned tinctures for the heart. What do you have included in that? So I've got a few tinctures. If you go on my website, crystalsunhealing.com, and go into the apothecary, I have one called Heart Magic, and that has osha root and rose in it. And all of my tinctures are non-alcoholic, so that is my specialty with the tinctures. Also, I have another one called Womb Magic, and that's made with 3 different plants of the rose family, and anything rose related is of the heart. And I also have the motherwort tincture, which is really awesome for all matters of the heart. If you know someone who is just like tough and just needs to just continuously bring more energy to the heart, motherwort is a wonderful plant ally. And then of course I have an oxymel called Heart Melt, for those who are a little bit frigid and just need their hearts melted just a little bit more. And it has like 6 different plants, like chrysanthemum, rose, hibiscus, and a few others that I can't remember off the top of my head, but they're all designed to support the heart. And these are all organic and or wildcrafted from my garden. And it's made with lots of love, because I'm also an herbalist, for those who don't know. But let's see. You're welcome, Bobby. Thank you for asking. And if you need more support with that, please do not hesitate to reach out to me. I hold space for heart transformations. I am a heart healer, and that is my specialty. That is the chakra I like to focus on the most, personally. So if you feel called, go to my website and set up a consultation with me, or send me a message and ask me where you feel you need more support, and I can support you with that. And that goes to everyone else watching this live stream. Otherwise, if there are no other questions, please hit the like button, share, subscribe, and mark your calendars for next week, as we will move into the throat chakra. And I will see you next time. Thank you so much.